All right, if you're over the age of 40, then I can guarantee you that you've been probably telling yourself that you're going through things that are normal, but the thing is that they're common. Things like low back pain, hunched shoulders, neck pain, waking up feeling awful. These are all things that we tell ourselves that are normal, but to be honest, they're common. So we actually can be fighting back against these things and making sure that as we age, that we're going into the best stage of our life. What we're going to be covering today is mobility and how that ties into being as pain-free and as feeling as good in your skin as possible. To start off, mobility is the pain-free strength of your range of motion, right? Making sure that you can move from end to end of your range of motion in any of your joints, feeling good, strong, and confident. Now, that is much different than what we're about to talk about is the difference between stretching, flexibility, and mobility, right? So we think that mobility is synonymous with stretching or flexibility. The three of them are different, and stretching and flexibility can tie into mobility, right? So for this, we could be thinking about things like you're thinking a toe touch would be something that would tie into mobility, and it could potentially. But the thing that I would say is that if you're doing a stretch under load, you're more likely that you're going to find yourself in a better position. The things that come to mind here are more things like yoga positions. Something like a downward dog or a prone cobra that you may have done in a traditional yoga class are things that are actually going to provide you better mobility. And the reason for that is because that you're going to be very intentional. They're going to have you be squeezing certain muscles or doing certain things or taking very specific breaths in these patterns that you're doing. And we want to make sure that we're very intentional about doing these things while we're going through the stretch, rather than it just being what we would call a passive stretch, where you're just kind of dangling over, trying to hunch and touch your toes and just kind of letting the passive weight of your body to take you into that stretch. That isn't going to necessarily push us into the type of mobility that we're talking about here today. The other thing is that flexibility and mobility are maybe not the same thing, because just because you are flexible enough to touch your toes doesn't mean that it feels good, right? In this case, we want to feel good, we want to feel strong as we bend over and touch those toes. So as we go through that, what we want to be talking about is why is it that I can bend over and it feels good, or why is it I can bend over and feels bad? And that's the roles that your joints and your muscles are going to be playing in this. So we're going to use the shoulder to the wrist as the example, or the hip to the ankle as the example. They can do various things. Your shoulder can go all around in a circle. It can move in different ways. It can adduct or abduct. It can, supinate, pronate. There's, externally rotate, internally rotate. There are such a variety of different things that the motion that these two types of joints can go through. The shoulder and the hip being the most complex, and then the ankle and the wrist maybe being, slightly less complex in the way that we are going to be thinking about it, because typically in these situations that they are going to be stationary because you're probably grabbing something or you're stepping on the ground. So what we want to be thinking about here is that if our joints are moving effectively and our muscles are intentionally engaged, that is going to usually lead to pain-free movement. Now, not at first. We want to make sure that we start in a range of motion that feels good and that makes us feel strong at that time. So you might, for example, let's talk about the hips, knees, and ankles. Here we might be doing something like a squat. As we go down into a squat, you might be feeling like you go down a quarter of the way and it feels good, but then you go below that and it feels bad. Well, what we can actually be doing is working on that squat in the pain-free range of motion that we currently have, working on the lower end of that range. As we sink deep, we want to hold that for a few seconds, challenge ourselves, come back up, and then we'll go back down into that range of motion. And we want to get right to where we're challenged. Even if it doesn't feel overly challenging, it might still be challenging certain things that are going on there. The other thing is that we can be more intentional about it, right? As we sink down into that squat a little bit, I could be squeezing my glutes. I could be squeezing my quads. I could be squeezing my tibialis a little bit, making sure that I'm very, very intentional about what I'm doing in that position and trying to engage those muscles as much as possible to make sure that I have strong joint structure as I go down. Now, from there, what we want to actually use is those to relate into 3 different drills. First one is going to be an actual sumo squat. So sumo squat is just basically where what we're going to do is we're going to try to sink all the way to the ground, and then we're going to try to push our knees out. This is a pretty age-old form of mobility here, but the reason that this is so great is because of the fact that we can try to sink as deep as we can. You push those knees out. This is going to be challenging our hips, knees, and ankles here, but we're going to be thinking about squeezing our glutes as hard as possible. Typically, most of the issues that we see with squatting is that we either see stiff ankles and our knees can't track as well as possible. The deeper we sink, the easier that this is going to work with that. Or we see that there's issues with external rotation in the hips and we're not engaging the glutes like we could be. So we want to make sure that as we go down that we're very, very intentional with making sure that we're engaging those glutes, holding anywhere from 5 to potentially 15 seconds on each of these, taking deep breaths so that we know that we're owning the position. The other thing that can give you confidence in practicing any of these movements that we're going to be talking about is that if you are holding a position, you're actually building strength in 15 degrees above and below that joint position. So if you're building strength at, let's say, 90-degree angle for squats in your knee, that if you hold that, you're going to be building strength 15 degrees below that. And as that gets more comfortable, you go to that lower position, you build 15 degrees below that. And it can be a slow process, but you're going to be slowly but surely building strength in that lower and lower and lower position as we build up our pain-free range of motion and strength. From there, what we could be doing is a side banded walk or a Jane Fonda. Once again, this kind of complements the sumo squat. I call the Jane Fonda is a side-lying leg raise. If you can kind of picture the jazzercise sort of tapes where we're lifting up our leg, going up and down, laying on your side. It's a very, very classical move. This is what's called a hip abduction, abduction. This just means that you're pushing your leg away from your body. What we want to be trying to do with this is that we want to be trying to open up our legs. This can sometimes take some pressure off of our groin, off the inside of our thigh. That can be very, very tight for a lot of us. And we're going to be building up that glute med. Glute med and the QL, which is going down the lower back, work in tandem to help stabilize our hips. So if you find that you are somebody that tends to have some low back pain, specifically whenever you're squatting, this is something that can really be a good godsend. And that's why I really like to keep these two in tandem together. And as we go through this, once again, we want to make sure that we're being very, very intentional, that we're making sure that the movement is coming from our hip, from our glute. It's really easy to feel it in the front of our hip, feel it going down our quad, kind of feeling the muscles that we're not looking for engaging. And that's why we're always talking about being very intentional as we go through this. The third drill that we're going to be talking about is a skydiver. A skydiver, a lot of times when people see it, they think that it is a Superman, Superwoman, super person, super people, which is a very, very classic move that a lot of us has done, but it's actually more about what's going on with the shoulder. What we want to do is we want to lay down on the ground flat, bring our hands and our shoulder blades up, keeping our head or our forehead down on the ground if we can. And we want to be opening up our posture, opening up our chest. I like to call it a proud chest, kind of like you're puffing it out, pinching those shoulder blades and kind of keeping our elbows up off of the ground, trying to keep our wrists up off of the ground. And this is going to put us in a strong, externally rotated position for our shoulders. At first, just trying to get the limbs up off of the ground can be very challenging. A lot of the times when people start that they can't keep their head down on the ground whenever they do it. It's because of the fact that they're so kind of tight through the front of those shoulders. So if you do have to lift your head up a little bit, that's okay, but we want to work on being able to remain completely flat on the ground. And then the takeaway here, guys, is really just that mobility is going to be our resilience as we age. Now, there's layers and layers and layers of things that we're going to build, we're still talking about laying that foundation. So we want to make sure that we build that resilience. If we have strong range of motion and we have strong joints, then we are going to be powerful when it comes to time to be building as much strength as we can, building as much muscle as we can, and losing as much fat as we can. We want to lay that foundation. We want to have that resilience in our body so that we go into the next stage of our life feeling like it is the best stage of our life. And it is also going to be our insurance policy, talking about whenever we are getting older, aging, that we're finding ourselves in challenging times, getting sick, falling, getting hurt, any of those things. If we have resilience that we've built up, you are going to find yourself in a position to be able to bounce back from that much faster than if not. There's been so many times that I've seen people say, oh, I had this shoulder thing that happened and it's just never been the same since. We work on it, and then next thing you know, they're like, I never thought I was going to get this back. And if you are working on this, when you do get injured, I can tell you that you're going to come back way faster and you're going to say, oh yeah, that's some little thing that happened and it's not a big deal. So make sure that you're working on this, make sure you're taking it seriously, lay that foundation, and I can tell you that all the other building blocks from there are only going to be easier and be better and better from there. All right, we're going to be entering the Q&A portion of today's episode.
First question, do I need to warm up before doing mobility work?
I would say yes. The idea of warm up, it might not be the thing that you're thinking of. It can be whatever you feel like kind of sets the tone for that workout of the day, or mobility session, or whatever we really want to call it. The way that I would look at it is, let's say that I was going to be doing something like a sumo squat that we were just talking about earlier. If I was going to be doing the sumo squat, my first rep that I would be going into, I might only go halfway. And then my next rep, I'm going to try to sink deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper each rep after that. And I might be holding for shorter amounts of time and then longer amounts of time as I do each and every rep. So your idea of warming up being that it's a very specific separate segment doesn't necessarily need to be that, but it's going to be basically what is going to set the tone for the workout. With that being said, you could also do other things that you felt like provided you with a good warm up, whether you felt like it was 5 minutes on the treadmill, which is a common thing that people like to do, or on the bike or the rower or whatever. Or it could be other things that kind of get you prompted maybe for some of these mobility movements. For example, for a sumo squat, you could always do something like a wall sit that is just going to be activating the muscles. You feel like it's getting you ready to go. And then we're going to be kind of going into these deep range of motion positions, kind of setting the tone for the next thing that we're going to be doing.
Okay. And what is the difference between stretching and mobility? Or are they the same thing?
So stretching and mobility are not the same thing. The way that I would think of stretching, whether it's a dynamic or a passive stretch, is that you are not providing a intention of what's going on. You're allowing either gravity or kind of a whipping motion, so passive would be that you're kind of allowing gravity or the position that you're in to stretch the muscle. You're going to be holding for a long time, or you have like a dynamic stretch, which is just going to be more where you're kind of doing maybe like a leg swing, where you're swinging your leg back and forth, kind of whipping it, almost in a way to get it lengthened, for a short amount of time. Now, a mobility might be where we're going to go into a stretch, but then we're going to squeeze a antagonistic muscle or the opposite muscle that's going to be pushing us deeper into that stretch. And then we're also going to be trying to fight our way with that stretch, so that way we're holding it with intention or under load. For example, that's why I like the sumo squat in this position, because we're sinking down into the squat. We have the load of our body, but we're also being intentional about maybe opening up our knees, trying to stretch our inner thighs, but we're squeezing the glutes that their job is to open up those legs. So among various things, but it's allowing us to get into that stretch intentionally rather than through maybe other devices that are a little bit less um, uh, intentional in this way that we're talking about them.
Okay. And how much mobility work should I do per week to see results?
So I would say that mobility work is one of those things that is definitely you get more out of it for the more frequency that you do. The other thing is this is also a lot of the things that I give to clients as homework. So I usually encourage them that I'm like, hey, when you wake up, let's do this mobility routine and get you feeling really good for the day. With that being said, I don't think you need to do it daily to see results. And I think that it doesn't need to be a long span of time. I actually usually tell them that I'm like, set a timer. If it goes past 15 minutes, you're done. That means that you just didn't have it in you to get through everything that day. Or as time goes on, challenge yourself to get through more and more things in that 15 minutes. But 15 minutes in the morning, I'm telling you, is going to make you feel great throughout your day. So many of us wake up, have a kink in their neck, low back pain, your knees feel bad, your shoulder hurts from sleeping on your side, whatever it might be, you feel stiff and you're achy. 15 minutes, I know it sounds awful to add something else into your morning routine, but it's just gonna make you feel really, really good. It's gonna help you and you're gonna see tons of results, not only just immediately, because you're gonna have this immediate effect of, I feel really good. It's also gonna make you feel energized for the day, but it's also gonna have a long lasting, I like to call it the sticky effect of now I can get into deeper positions. Now I feel stronger whenever I'm in these deeper positions. And you're going to have a better body feel overall.
Okay. And when is the best time of day to do mobility?
So I just kind of was saying about the morning. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best time of day. I just am always going to say the morning for a lot of things, for a lot of reasons. There's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. In there, one of the habits is keep first things first. Just means that if it's a priority, do it immediately. And so that's why I'm always going to encourage people to do things as soon as they wake up. It's just easier to be consistent with it. It's easier to make it a part of your day. It's easier to bake into a routine. A lot of us have when I get up, I do this and that and this and that and this and that, and then I go to work. So it's just a lot of people have routines that they immediately dive into. Tacking on a habit in that routine is just one of the easier things to do. The best time of day is going to be different for everybody. Logistically, it's going to be whenever it's best for you. It's going to be best for whenever you can get it consistently in your workout, or get consistently your mobility session in. But I would probably say somewhere in the first half of your day is probably going to be the best because you're going to get to enjoy the way that it feels. But with that being said, I even have some people that have issues sleeping, and I have them do a mobility routine right before they go to bed. Now, we want to make sure that we don't do anything too strenuous, because then if you're going to get this kind of like, I'm wired now feeling. So we're very, very cautious of that. But for the most part, we want to kind of keep things somewhere between that, like when we wake up to probably 2 p.m. I know a lot of us probably work out between 2 to 5 when we get a chance to go to the gym. So I know that sounds maybe unrealistic, but there's great places that we can do this, whether you have a break at work, your lunch break, first thing when you wake up, things like that. But the most important thing is that you get it in and you're consistent with it.
Okay, and last question. What is the number one exercise you would recommend?
The number one exercise overall that I would recommend for any and all reasons. That's a pretty tough question. There's a lot of directions I think I could go with this. I think that I would probably either have to go, I'm going to kind of play devil's advocate in kind of two different directions that I would go here. I would either go in a direction where I would try to go very, I'm going to use the term like realistic or functional, where it would probably be something like a Turkish get up. Turkish get up is a very complex exercise that we're going to probably get into down the road. But if you Google it, it'll come up, and there'll be 1,000 videos of it, people demoing it. But that is a series of basically 7 different movements and transitions and holds that you go through. You basically start on the floor, and then you go up into a standing position, then you go back down to the floor. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. I could also make the devil's advocate of like a bear crawl or a sled push. I think those are just movements that get you moving and are very, very, can be scaled and can be very, very effective. I think on the other side of things, I think that if I was looking for, I want to be super strong, I want to be mobile, I want to be build tons of muscle. I think the other way I would go is either like a clean and jerk, which I just don't think is realistic for most people because there's a lot of technique and skill that go into that. Or more simply, it would probably be something like a squat, a back squat, a front squat, a squat to a overhead press. It would be some kind of squatting position, mostly because I think that you're going to build the most overall tension and the most overall muscle and strength while requiring yourself to get into a mobile position at the bottom of those squats. But I would have to say it depends on where I'm going with it, but it would probably be in one of those directions. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. It really helps us out. Do me a favor, like, comment, and subscribe to us so that way that we can keep doing this for you guys and keep putting out this information. If you think that we can help you, please visit us directly at www.sylvesterfitness.com. That's SYLVESTER fitness.com. Thank you. Catch you in the next one.